Hello guys, Andrew, welcome back. So in our last lesson, what we did was to just arrange and duplicate these guys. Now I actually want to have at least 3 of these, so I'll just drag this guy to the right and select the slime object 2 and just drag that to the right a little bit. And I'll just duplicate the third one because I like 3 is a good number. And for the coin, I'll just drag this down a bit. And for the second coin, drag it down a bit. And let's just duplicate another one. So these are all instances of the scene. Each coin is an instance of the scene. So this is a scene with a coin on its own. And then when we get to our main scene, we can actually see all of these coins like so, such that when we play it, we can actually see all these objects on the scene like so, and they're waiting for interaction. Now the area 2D, like I mentioned initially, is going to create a region of space that will detect if an area has entered it. So basically, if we look at our coin, for instance, and go to our node, if we click on the coin itself, we can actually see an area entered. Basically, when this receives area enters this area, emitted when the received area enters this area. And you can actually see there is a special variable here called area, and we can pass that into our area 2D to check if an object has indeed collided or entered this area space. It actually tests the region, not the collision. So there's an area and it's checking what happens when another area enters this place. And because our player is an area as well, if this our player area enters this coin area, then an area entered signal will be emitted. And basically that's what we're going to take advantage of to make sure these signals communicate with each other. But before we move forward, I want to create groups, and basically with a group you can group similar objects in the same group. For instance, I can create a group for the coin, so I'll just go over here to groups, and I'm going to call this a collectible. And basically I can check if this area 2D is in a group called a collectible and this group is colliding with the player. Basically what that means is I can create any number of objects and I can assign them to a group called this collectible, and it will actually react in the same way. So that's one thing. And each time you create a group, you'll actually notice there's a square with a circle in it, basically like a box with an object in it telling you this object is actually in a group. So it says node is in this group collectible, and click to show signal docs. So let's go ahead and jump to our slime, and I'll create a group here on manage groups. Make sure you're on groups and make sure you're selecting the slime object. And here I'll just call this enemy and hit the return key and save this. We need to attach a script to our coin and our enemy object. So I'll just go ahead and jump onto my coin. And once I'm in my coin, I'll just attach a script and I'll call this coin. I believe we have a scripts folder. Let's see this. Yeah, so I'll just put this in the scripts folder and click create. And then this extends an area 2D, and all I need to do in here is to create a function called func. I'll just call that coin underscore pickup like so. And what I'm going to pass in here is to ask this what happens when the player has entered this coin's region. Basically, if the coin has detected that a player has entered this region, I want you to remove the coin from the scene, and Godot uses queue_free to remove an object safely from the scene. We could just add a comment here and say removes the object from the scene. Right, so if our player comes into contact with this coin's area, it's going to remove the coin from the scene. If this happens to be an enemy, like we have our slime here, we could actually hurt our player when our player enters this enemy's zone right here. And let's go ahead and do that. So let's go to our slime I'm actually on my slime. I was on my coin, so now I'm on my slime, and I'll create a script here, and I'll just call that the slime.gd. I think it's fine because our slime is a type of enemy, and I'll make sure I put that in our scripts folder right here. And now I'll click create, and I'll create a function right here, and I'll just call that func remove underscore enemy. And basically what this is going to do is to remove the enemy from the scene when the player enters the enemy region. So let's say queue free again, and basically we're just removing our objects when they come in contact with each other. So to do that, let's go back to our player and let's attach a script to our player object right here. And I'll just go ahead and call that our player script, like so. I think I'm having problems with my program right here. Good. So I'll just go ahead and call this, attach a script here, and I'll call this player and make sure we put that in our scripts folder location. So I'll go to scripts and click open and click create. So now we have a nice player script here that we can start coding. So the first thing I'll do is to check my on area entered, because this is actually a area entered script. So let's go ahead and just do that real quick. So here on the player, if I click on the inspector, click on the player and go back to the node and go to my signals, I can actually see I have the area entered signal here. So if we double click on this signal and click connect, we can actually see we have a function called our on area entered. So next, what we're going to do to check is if our collectible is in our group collectible. Let's see, let's just print out that the player has collided with the coin. So to do that, I'm just going to say if collectible dot is in group and here we're using the area entered. I want to check which area has entered here. I'll just call this a collectible, like so. And again, let's just check if collectible, and it'll actually work with the area. So I'll just say dot is underscore in underscore group, and I'll call this group the collectible because that's the group we call the objects for our collectibles. So I'll just say print, and I'll say player collided. So let's say player with the coin, like so. So let's go ahead and just save this and just run it. And again, we can't actually move our player because our player doesn't have any way to move towards the coin. So I'll just create the process function and then move the player automatically towards the right. So I'll say a func underscore process, and I'll use underscore delta because I'm not going to be using that much. And I'll take my position dot x and I'll add 1 to my position, and I'll add a comment and say move the player 1 pixel to the right so that the player can actually start heading towards the coin if we go to our main scene here. So I'll save this and let's just play this and see what's happening. So for the first 3 coins, it says player collided with the coin. So I believe that's actually working. So let's go back to our player script by clicking on this script here. So we're in our player position right now. So again, let's do the same thing for the enemy. And before we jump into the enemy, let's complete our player code. Now we have an area called the collectible area, And the collectible, that's the area that's colliding with the player, has a function called our coin pickup. So this collectible here is simply the area. I can just call this area to make things easy. So I'll just say area, and I'll type area right here. So if this area that is in the same region as the player is in a group called collectible, so basically I can have more items and put them in a group collectible as long as they are in an area 2D. The region will detect that this is the object. So I'm just going to do collectible dot coin underscore. So sorry, I'm going to do I think I called it area, so I'm just going to say area dot coin underscore pickup. I believe I called it coin pickup. Let's see what we called that function in the coin. So we called it coin underscore pickup. So I think we're super good. So it's the coin underscore pickup. And when coin underscore pickup is called, it's going to run the queue-free function that will get rid of the coin or make the coin disappear. So let's play this. So 1, 2, 3. So our 3 coins have indeed disappeared. Now, what we can also do with this is to do something like, add value or add health or add scores or add points to our little scene right here. So let's go ahead and do that. So up above, I'm going to create a variable called player health, or rather, let's add for our coins. So let's say var. So I'm going to say coins underscore collected is going to be an integer. I'm going to set the initial value to 0. So each time our player is within the region of a coin, I want to add 1 to the coin. So what I'm going to do here next is to say my coins collected. So I'm just going to say coins collected plus equal to 1. And what I want to do is to print that output so we can see this. So I'm going to say print. I'm going to say player now has, and I'll use a format. So I'm going to use a format specifier for the string, and I'll say coin, or it could be more than one coin with an S. So I'm sure player now has, and this number is going to increase by 1. Our coins collected. And what I can do is to just pass in the variable, and I'm going to say coins collected, like so. And basically each time our player collides with a coin, it should increase by 1 and tell us. So 1, 2, 3. So it says player now has 3 coins, and I'm seeing this from the output. So you can see we can do a lot of things when an area is interacting with another area. And what I'm also, it gives me an idea to actually take away the health from the enemy. So what I'm going to do is to create a signal right here. And I'm going to create a signal in the player, signal, like so. Doesn't hurt to, I'm just going to call this player underscore hurt. So basically I want to call a hurt player signal when our player collides with the enemy, and our hurt signal is going to take away from our player health. So I'm going to create a variable for the player underscore health. It's going to be an integer, and I'm going to set this initial value to say 3. So our player is going to have 3 health, and when our player collides with an enemy, I'm going to actually say, hey, we're actually going to hurt the player. So we need a hurt player function we can call when we call this signal. So let's go ahead and create that function. So I'm going to say func, and I'm going to call that underscore hurt underscore player. And basically what I'm going to do is to, let's just quickly connect this in our ready function. So our hurt player function, what I'm simply going to do is to say, I'm going to print and say player is hurt. And that's what this is going to do. I'll just get rid of this output and hide these. And right here on our onReady function, which we actually going to create. So I'm going to just do a func underscore ready, like so. I'm going to connect that signal. So I'm just going to say connect. If you remember, we need to pass in the name of the signal. So it's player hurt. And I'm going to call in the callable, and in the callable I'll pass in the self and then the name of the function in a string, and that's our hurt player function, like so, which we created down here. So when this script starts, it's going to tell us our player is hurt, and let's save this and run this and see this in action. So I'm going to hit play, and it says okay, good. Do we have any player is hurt right here? So we have signal player collided with coin. So we don't have the player is hurt. So something is not really working properly here. So first, let me put this signal at the topmost. And I'll just pass it here just to make sure this gets registered. And let's check. We called it player hurt. And indeed, the name of the signal is player hurt, and function name is underscore hurt underscore player. And wow, I made a mistake here. I'm calling this function. I just need the name because that's the duty of the callable. It represents this method. So I'm not calling the full method name. I should just call the name of the method without the parentheses. And hopefully, let me just stop this and run it again. We should first see that our player is hurt. Where is it? Okay, we're actually not seeing it right here. So what is the problem, and why is this not connecting right here when we actually so the reason why it's not working is because we need to emit the signal. So that's the rules of creating signals. So let's try that again. So let's say the name of the signal is player hurt dot emit, like so. So we need to emit a signal because it's a signal. If we're not emitting the signal, even though we connect and call the signal with the signal name, it won't work. So I'll just hit play. So now we can actually see it working here. It says player is hurt. So that means that signal is working super duper fine. And so what we're going to do here as well is in this on area entered, let's do something and check for the enemy, if the enemy is in that group. And then what we're going to do is to hurt the player and then destroy the enemy. So to do that, we're going to say if, we can say area dot is underscore in underscore group. So if this area is in group, and which group? It's in the enemy group. Don't forget that we created a group for the enemy. What we want to do is to call the player hurt signal. So I'm just going to say player underscore hurt and dot emit. We're going to be emitting the player hurt signal, and then we're going to be removing the enemy from the screen. So I'm just going to say area dot, and we call the function remove underscore enemy, I believe. We can always quickly check it by going to our main scene, then going to our slime and clicking it. So we have a function called remove enemy that is going to be called if it's within the contact of our enemy. And again, I'm going to modify this player hurt script to remove 1 from our player health. So what I'm going to do is simply say our player health. So our player underscore health minus equal to 1. And let's print that output on the console so we can actually see it. So what I'm going to do is to say let's print out using this, and I'll say player health is now, and I'll use our format specifier using the format symbol S, And then right after that, I'm going to pass in which variable. So it's my player health. So I'm going to say player health like so. So I'm going to be taking away 1 from the player health. Now, if my player health is, let's just go ahead and see if this is working super fine. So let's play this and let's monitor our output. So we have 3 coins. So player health is now -1. So let's stop that from happening. So to do that, I'm just going to use an if statement. So I'm just going to say if our player health is less than or equal to 0. So what do I want to do? I want to just say, well, print, let's say by player, because our player is no longer there now. And then finally, what I'm going to do is to run the queue free. So queue free. So basically destroy the player if the player's health is less than or equal to 0. I believe I should use less than 0, not equal to, because I don't want it to go to -1. But let's see if this actually works. So let's look at our output. Player collided with coins. Player health is now 0, and by player 1. So let's see. Something funny. So player health is now 1. Player is hurt. Player is hurt. Player is now 1. Player is hurt. Player health is now 0. So basically what's happening is, because I'm using the same area here, right? I'm using area. What's happening is that it's seeing this the same as if it's getting this value from the coin. So it's actually taken away from this. So I think there's a little bug somewhere in here, but hopefully this gives you a basic idea to see how this script is working. So let's see if we can figure out that little bug right here, because we're starting our player health at a value of 3, which we specified right here. So our player health is 3, and here if an area has entered, so if this area is in the group enemy, so player hurt dot emit. So let's see, in our connect we're emitting this. So what I'll do is to just get rid of this and comment this out, because if we're emitting the hurt, that means it's already deducing 1 automatically, right? So so that means our health is going to be 2, not 3. So if it's 2, by the time I hit the first 2 enemies, the player's health will have reached 0 and it will destroy the last enemy. So let's see if that has solved the problem. So coin player health is now 2, 1, player health is now 0, and by player. So the reason why that bug happened was because we're actually emitting it here. So I don't think we really need this ready function. So I'll just go ahead and, or I'll just leave it for example's sake and just leaving it. So just know that that is bound to happen and that might happen. So again, this is how signals work. We've seen how we can connect signals automatically, like we have in our button right here, which we created a signal in our main scene and connected this signal right here, which is the pressed. We also saw how we could call a signal right here in our marker example, where we just emitted a signal from a scene. So you can create a variable, access that scene, and then if you have a function, you can call that function. So we're calling the emit signal function from that scene, and also we are using the area to the region, which is the area, and then we've connected this on area entered, and then we actually saw how we could use a callable to connect a custom signal called player on the player hurt when we've actually connected or contacted or are in the region of an enemy. So hopefully this has helped you understand and see how signals are important. We can even use signals in like an animated sprite. We can see signals here, and these are all default built-in signals. We can add our own signals. We have signals for our collision shapes as well. So Godot loves signals, and signals are very, very similar. And a callable, remember, is a function that stands in or represents a function. And don't make the same mistake I did by calling this hurt function with parentheses. So hopefully this helps. If you have any way you want me to improve or want a better tutorial, just let me know. I know this is bloody long, but I've split it into 3 parts, and if you like watching the entire video, you can have access to the entire length. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next quick tip.